In 1823, deep in the cotton fields of Mississippi, the ground began to breathe. Farmers said the soil was alive, pulsing beneath their feet, whispering names no one had ever spoken aloud. When the Godfrey Plantation vanished from every map, officials called it a tragedy. But locals still remember the curse, born from greed, bound in clay and buried with the bones of the South itself. Tonight, we uncover the secret of the Black Seed, a horror that never died. It only waited. In the heart of Wilkinson County, Mississippi, 1823, the summer came too early. The skies hung low, the air clotted with gnats, and the river turned the color of rust. Farmers spoke of bad omens, of something restless beneath their fields. But on the Godfrey Plantation, that restlessness had a name. Oba wasn't just a slave. He was sold for something else. His frame, towering, silent, carved from years of survival, drew the eye of one man, Master Isaac Godfrey, a man with dying crops and no heirs. That year Isaac paid triple at auction, and when he brought Oba home, the overseers noticed something strange. The bird stopped singing. Records from the auction house mention exceptional fertility. The words are clinical, but the intention was monstrous. Isaac Godfrey had lost 3 children in infancy. His wife Miriam, frail and trembling, blamed the land. But the land, it seemed, blamed them. So Isaac made a bargain, whispered to by a traveling preacher who carried more relics than scriptures. The seed of one cursed by the old gods, the preacher said, will make your blood endure. So Oba was purchased not as a man, but as a vessel. The plantation women, enslaved, unwilling, terrified, were ordered to test him. Within days, something unnatural began to happen. Every woman who met Oba's eyes claimed to see faces in the darkness, faces that did not belong to the living. In the dead of winter, one woman gave birth in the quarters. The child was silent, not dead but quiet, its eyes unfocused as if watching something far away. The midwife, an old woman who spoke Yoruba, wept when she saw the infant. "The god of the river follows him," she said. That night, the river behind the plantation swelled without rain. By morning, livestock were found dead, their throats filled with mud as if they had drowned on dry land. The overseers blamed superstition, but the births continued, each one stranger than the last. Oba never spoke of his homeland, but one night a young boy hiding beneath the floorboards heard him chanting in the dark. The words were not English, not even wholly human. They pulsed, deep, rhythmic, like a drum beneath the soil. The boy swore he saw something crawl out from the cracks, a shadow shaped like a hand reaching for the sleeping. Weeks later, the boy vanished. The floorboards where he'd hidden were found warped, the wood blackened from the inside. The plantation preacher claimed it was the devil testing their faith. But Miriam Godfrey began to dream of the boy, floating face down in a red river, Oba watching from the bank, whispering prayers older than America itself. By spring, the Godfreys could no longer hide the whispers. Women pregnant with strange children, fields that grew overnight but bled when plowed. In desperation, Isaac built a chapel at the edge of the plantation, not for God but for appeasement. The walls were lined with relics, crosses carved from the cottonwood tree, and beneath the altar the skull of a ram half buried in red clay. The slaves called it Ilioko, the house of the buried god. No one prayed there after dark, for inside the air grew thick and a heartbeat could be heard through the walls. The curse was not spreading, it was awakening. In May, traders arrived to inspect the breeding success. They found something no one could explain. The women had changed. Their skin carried faint markings like burn scars, spirals along the arms and stomach. The men avoided them, whispering that the devil's ink had claimed them. One trader, drunk on whiskey, tried to cut one of the marks with his knife. The moment the blade touched flesh, his own skin split open, bleeding symbols that none could read. He died within the hour. His body was buried, but the next morning the grave was empty, the soil breathing as if something beneath were alive. The cotton trees began to change. Their bark darkened and the sap ran red. Birds would not land there. At night, the slaves said they heard the trees whisper in a language that was not theirs. The overseer, defiant, ordered a tree cut down, but as the axe struck, blood sprayed from the trunk. They burned the logs. The smoke turned black and oily, coating everything it touched. From then on, those who inhaled it began to dream. Dreams of chains that turned to roots, of a man with eyes like rivers, whispering, "Return to the soil." Preacher Duval stood before the congregation, trembling. "The Lord tests the righteous," he said, but his voice quivered. In his Bible, the ink bled through the pages. On the last verse of Revelation, new words appeared, written in mud. "What is buried in chains shall rise unbound." That night the preacher hung himself in the chapel, his feet muddy as if he'd walked through the river before dying. In the morning the chapel bell rang on its own. It began with the insects. Tiny black beetles appeared across the plantation, swarming through cracks, crawling over crops, biting through sacks of grain. No one knew their kind. They carried no hum, no wings, only a faint clicking like teeth gnashing. Within weeks the livestock sickened. Then the people, the afflicted, would wake at night clawing their skin, claiming to hear whispers beneath their flesh. When the doctor came from Natchez, he burned their bedding, their clothes, their Bibles, and said only one thing: "This isn't illness. This is inheritance." By midsummer, the river ran backward. Locals said it was a trick of the tide, but those who stood by the shore swore they saw shapes moving against the current, small, pale, and human. The slaves refused to fish or bathe. "The children have returned," they whispered. At dusk, Isaac's wife Miriam walked to the water and never came back. Only her bonnet was found, soaked, and inside it a clump of river clay shaped like a tiny handprint. That night the plantation dogs went mad. The next morning, they were found in the shallows, each drowned, eyes open toward the bank. When the county clerk rode out to document the plantation's losses, he found Isaac Godfrey alone, his hair turned white, his eyes hollow. On his desk was a single page written in trembling ink. The curse was not born here. It followed. In the fireplace, something burned that was not wood. Bone ash, mixed with dried herbs, releasing a bitter smell that made the clerk's horse refuse to approach the house again. The report never reached the courthouse. 2 days later, the clerk vanished on his way back to town. By autumn, the plantation was nearly deserted. But travelers passing by claimed to see lanterns moving among the fields, slow, rhythmic like mourners in procession. One night, a merchant from Natchez stopped to rest near the property. He heard singing, low, ancient like a lullaby sung underwater. When he awoke at dawn, his horse was gone. The ground around his camp was wet, as though rain had fallen only there. In the mud, bare footprints led toward the river, then simply disappeared. That year the cotton grew taller than any had seen, thick, ghost white, swaying though no wind blew. The overseers, what few remained, burned the fields in fear. But when the fire took, it released not smoke but fog, black and heavy, rolling for miles. People in neighboring farms reported hearing whispers in the fog, names, pleas, prayers in languages they didn't know. The fire burned for 7 days. When it ended, the soil was cold. Nothing grew again on that land. Not cotton, not weeds, not even worms. A survey team arrived in 1830 to reclaim the land. They found no house, no chapel, only depressions in the earth, hundreds of them, as if the land had sunk under invisible weight. One worker dug into a pit and struck something hard. It wasn't stone. It was a coffin made of clay. No nails, no seams. And when they cracked it open, it was empty save for a mask made of dried mud, shaped like a human face. The foreman ordered the pits sealed. By the next morning, the pits had refilled themselves, as if the earth had pulled them closed. In 1841, travelers on the Natchez Trace wrote of a strange storm that stained the sky crimson over Wilkinson County. The rain that fell that night burned the leaves where it touched, leaving black circles like eyes. Locals who gathered it in pails found that it curdled overnight, thickening into something between water and blood. It was dismissed as dust storm residue, but the old ones whispered, "The land remembers." During the Civil War, Union soldiers briefly camped near the ruins of the Godfrey Plantation. They reported finding chains buried in rows, not horizontal, but vertical, as if something had been planted there. The officer's logbook reads, "At night, the earth trembles as though breathing." The men refuse to stand watch. Some swear they see faces in the dirt. By dawn, half the unit had deserted. Their tracks led south, directly into the swamp. None were found again. Decades passed. Families resettled. Towns grew. But in census records, a pattern emerged. Every family that owned land adjoining the Godfrey tract suffered the same fate. Children lost to fever, cattle drowned without flood, and trees that bled when cut. Locals began calling it the Black Line, an invisible border marking where God won't walk. Even now, satellite images show that stretch of land as a perfect shadow, a rectangle of darkness no crop will cross. In 1939, an ethnographer from Chicago recorded old spirituals sung by descendants of the region's freed people. One, song transcribed as Oba's Lament, tells of a man whose soul was buried alive so that others might harvest its strength. When played backward, the tape emits a low hum, measured, rhythmic, the same pulse described in the earliest Godfrey accounts. Experts dismissed it as tape degradation, but the researcher who archived it went missing the following spring. Her notes end mid-sentence. It's not a song. It's a heartbeat. In 1972, archaeologists attempted to excavate part of the land for study. The deeper they dug, the warmer the soil became. Instruments failed. Compasses spun. Then one worker struck clay, smooth, almost polished. Moments later, the trench collapsed, swallowing 2 men whole. When the earth was cleared, their bodies were never found. The site was abandoned, sealed, and fenced. The official report lists ground instability. Unofficially, it's known as the pit that breathes. This is Dr. Amelia Hart, University of Baton Rouge, signing off October 14, 1998. We have analyzed the Godfrey soil samples. The results are inconclusive. There are human remains in the clay, but no sign of decomposition. The cells appear alive. The recording ends there. 2 days later, the lab burned to the ground. No one rebuilt. No one investigated. The land remains unmarked. Locals still say, on the hottest nights, you can hear a deep pulse beneath the ground, like something dreaming, waiting, remembering. And when the air turns red before dawn,